Zenith Academy hovered in the far reaches of known space as a vast hub of learning and culture, an orbiting bastion of knowledge where students from countless star systems converged to perfect their survival skills, expand their intellectual horizons, and forge alliances that transcended planetary boundaries. The station itself appeared as an enormous, rotating construct of polished alloy and translucent corridors, shaped by centuries of engineering breakthroughs. Energy pulsated along its exterior conduits, giving it a faint, mesmerizing glow in the darkness. On any given day, one could see dozens of ships of varying designs docking at its outer rings, depositing new students, scholars, and dignitaries who hoped to share or acquire expertise in the Academy's venerated halls. Many who came to Zenith Academy did so with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The student body included crystalline beings with refractive bodies that shimmered under the artificial lights, floating organisms that needed no legs to walk but drifted gracefully in pressurized envelopes of gas, and reptilian humanoids whose thick scales reflected the station's ambient glow. All had different customs and ideas about what was normal or possible. Despite this diversity, one student had become the focus of widespread fascination and hushed conversations. Her name was Mira Carter, and she was the only representative of a species rarely encountered in this region of space. People whispered about her in corridors and common areas, describing her as a human from a place that most alien travelers called the Death World. Rumors circulated that on her home planet of Terra, nearly every organism, from the largest predators to the tiniest insects, carried lethal traits. This haunting reputation made others glance at her with trepidation, as though expecting her to exhibit the ferocity of the creatures said to roam her world. When Mira first arrived, she noticed the stares but did her best to ignore them. She attended basic orientation, where the academy staff explained how classes were organized, how dorms were assigned, and how specialized suits could be adapted to fit every species. She calmly introduced herself to those who would listen, trying to appear open and friendly. Still, fellow students would often retreat from her with awkward politeness, as if uncertain how to approach someone who had grown up in an environment more dangerous than any they had ever known. Mira felt both amused and a bit isolated by the fear in their eyes. The rumors about carnivorous plants or monstrous predators were only partially correct, but no one seemed inclined to ask for details. Instructor Varlek, an insectoid figure with large, compound eyes and a voice that clicked and rasped in a distinct cadence, was a commanding presence in the academy. He specialized in advanced survival theory and prided himself on an encyclopedic knowledge of planetary ecosystems. One day, he began a lecture series about dangerous creatures, telling his class that each student would present an apex predator or uniquely hazardous life form from their homeworld. By examining these creatures' adaptations, the class would gain insights into how to anticipate and cope with various forms of peril. A ripple of anticipation spread through the group, as many had personal tales to tell about their own worlds. Yet whispers floated through the room about the day when Mira would reveal what lurked on Terra, the so-called Death World. Some dreaded seeing images of beasts rumored to be unstoppable, while others were intrigued by the possibility of new knowledge. During the first round of presentations, several students showcased holographic representations of alarming predators. A reptilian student displayed a sleek, silent hunter with razor-sharp claws. A feathered student showed a brightly plumed creature with a hooked beak strong enough to crack open hardened seed pods. Another student demonstrated a swift, amphibious predator that delivered neurotoxin through barbed spines. These were indeed dangerous in the context of their home planets, and the entire class watched with rapt attention. Mira, seated in the middle, observed these images without flinching. Her calm demeanor caused some to wonder if she was so accustomed to horrifying creatures that nothing could unsettle her. When her turn finally arrived, the room grew eerily still. Mira set up her projector and presented various terrestrial species in turn. First, she highlighted a squat, powerful mammal called a wolverine. She described its size, its gnashing teeth, and its tendency to confront animals far larger than itself. Whispers of alarm spread among the students as they considered how fearsome such a creature must be. Next, she showed a massive bear, rearing up on its hind legs and roaring with a sound that reverberated through the holographic display. The alien audience reacted with wide eyes and muffled gasps. Some repeated in low voices that humans actually lived near such creatures. She then transitioned to Earth's oceans, revealing a great white shark bursting from the water and clamping its jaws around a seal. Many in the audience had never conceived of a predator that hunted so decisively in a medium as dense as water. The final portion of her display involved a rapid succession of lethal organisms: venomous serpents that could end life in a single bite, spiders that ensnared prey in sticky webs lined with toxic barbs, scorpions hiding beneath rocks, massive saltwater crocodiles that lurked in rivers, and small, winged creatures that sustained themselves on the blood of larger animals. A few students were so rattled that they turned away, unwilling to watch. Others sat rooted to their seats, overcome by morbid fascination. Several looked as if their old nightmares had just gained new shapes. After letting the silence linger, Mira concluded by showing a solitary silhouette of a human being. She described how, above all else, humans had shaped the environment and learned to contend with every threat. She explained that humans could adapt to different climates, defend themselves from predators, and harness vast resources to bend nature to their collective will. This, she said, made humans arguably as dangerous as any apex predator, for they possessed not only physical capabilities, but also intellect, cooperation, and technology. The hush in the room turned into a stunned quiet that persisted for long seconds. Instructor Varlock eventually acknowledged the insight and praised her presentation, though he did so in a measured tone that betrayed his unease. The other students began to view Mira with a mixture of awe and apprehension, realizing that she had grown up amid dangers they found unimaginable. In the aftermath, the academy began to buzz with renewed energy. Students in common areas, hallways, and the dining hall whispered about Terra, repeating bits of Mira's presentation. Some insisted that any planet filled with such threats had to be a cursed place, while others suggested that perhaps these stories proved humans were uniquely resilient. A contingent of curious souls hoped to learn more. Whenever Mira took her meal in the dining hall, a wide, open space lined with tall windows showing the endless stars, onlookers would sometimes gather at a slight distance to observe her. She would notice their curious stares and invite them to sit, but many scurried away, still intimidated. Over time, a few brave individuals asked questions. One or two wanted to know more about Earth's technology. Others wondered if all humans were as adept at survival as she seemed to be. Meanwhile, the Academy announced its annual Survival Challenge, an event that tested every participant in a specially designed simulation chamber called the Viridian Labyrinth. The labyrinth was a place of advanced holographic illusions combined with physical obstacles. Simulated predators could interact with participants in real time, capturing them or forcing them to retreat if they failed to defend themselves properly. The environment would shift without warning, presenting new and unexpected hazards. Students would be dropped into this disorienting jungle one group at a time, and instructors would monitor their progress from a control room. Those who performed well would gain prestige within the academy, possibly earning invitations to join elite circles like the Survivalist Club, while those who did poorly might find themselves reconsidering their chosen path. When the challenge day arrived, the broad courtyard outside the labyrinth filled with participants, each wearing gear adapted to their bodies. Some had specialized suits to maintain moisture levels. Others wore breathing apparatuses or protective exoskeletons. Mira stood among them in a simpler uniform, looking quietly confident. Instructor Varlock briefed everyone on the rules. They would need to locate supplies, traverse difficult terrain, avoid or defeat menacing illusions, and ultimately find their way to the central clearing, where the biggest challenge awaited. Many students exchanged nervous glances, but Mira simply listened attentively and awaited her turn to enter the simulation. Some had begun to anticipate a startling performance from the human, given the rumors about her planet. During one particularly memorable interlude, Mira was invited to a neighboring starship that specialized in ecological research. The ship's crew had heard about her success and asked if she could advise them on studying a newly discovered planet that seemed to have an aggressive biosphere. She spent a day aboard that vessel, examining data, analyzing terrain scans, and offering suggestions based on Earth's wide range of survival scenarios. The crew listened intently, occasionally exchanging glances of relief or hope, as if they had finally found someone who could turn their fears about this planet into workable strategies. Before returning to the Academy, Mira toured the starship's labs, marveling at their advanced instruments, and recognized that her journey was forging connections that might help others approach hostile environments with confidence. Back at Zenith Academy, life went on with the usual pace of lectures, research projects, and training exercises, but Mira's presence had distinctly altered the social dynamic. Whereas once, the very mention of Terra sent some students into hushed panic, it now triggered discussions about the nature of adversity and the ways different species adapted. Groups of students formed study collectives that compared Terra to worlds known for ice storms, acid rain, or savage solar flares. They noticed that Earth's threats were numerous but varied, requiring adaptability on many levels. In some cases, the complexities of Earth's ecosystems rivaled that of high-radiation environments or gas giant colonies. This led to a broader conclusion that no single environment had a monopoly on danger, and that survival was a universal language shaped by the interplay of geology, biology, and culture. Mira's own circle of friends had grown to include a diversity of species. The gelatinous student whom she had saved early on became a regular companion, often revealing fun facts about other watery worlds where aquatic life reached colossal sizes. A feathered student, once terrified by Earth's so-called predatory birds, began discussing avian similarities, pointing out that wings could be a symbol of both fragility and power. A few reptilian students joined her daily runs around the Academy's outer corridors, curious to see whether humans truly possessed endurance, as rumor claimed. Though they found it challenging, they admitted it felt exhilarating, and the camaraderie they shared helped them better appreciate each other's strengths. Eventually, a new wave of students joined the Academy. They had only heard secondhand stories. So many came seeking out the legendary human from the death world. They tended to approach her with questions or requests for guidance, hoping her experience would help them acclimate more swiftly. Some came from planets that were arguably as dangerous as Terra, but in very different ways. Extreme temperature fluctuations, gravitational anomalies, or perpetual storms. Mira, always mindful that her own planet was not the sole crucible of survival, respected these newcomers for their own formidable backgrounds. Through conversations with them, she discovered parallels between Earth and other worlds. One or two had reptilian species that similarly contended with powerful apex predators, or watery planets that hid monstrous creatures beneath the ice. Sharing experiences became a two-way exchange, deepening the sense that the Academy truly was an epicenter of cultural and ecological diversity. Mira's relationship with instructor Varlic took on a mentor-mentee quality infused with mutual respect. He encouraged her to write a comprehensive thesis on comparative survival strategies, using Terra as a case study to highlight methods that might be applied universally. She worked late into the night in the data archives, cross-referencing known deadly planets, analyzing historical records of colonization attempts, and documenting how human strategies could fill in gaps in the existing theories. This thesis gradually became the talk of advanced classes. Word had it that once she completed it, it might even be recommended for publication in academic journals beyond the Academy. Mira was both humbled and inspired by the possibility that she could contribute to a broader understanding of how species endured adversity. In the midst of this ongoing academic whirlwind, she never lost her sense of wonder. When not occupied by her courses or her thesis, she explored the station's lesser-known decks, discovering gardens filled with transplanted flora from many worlds. She admired sculptures that changed shape in response to telepathic pulses from certain alien visitors. She found quiet corners where she could stare out at the cosmic panorama, letting her mind wander back to Earth. Sometimes she remembered specific details: the smell of rain-soaked pine, the distant roar of a waterfall, the comforting glow of city lights in the midst of a storm. These memories reassured her that though she was far from home, she carried Terra's spirit with her, the very essence that had shaped her into who she was. Gradually, the name Death World lost much of its ominous sting. Fellow students began calling it Terra more frequently, even if they still sometimes tacked on phrases like forged by adversity or cradle of fierce life. The Academy's internal network sprouted discussion forums dedicated to Earth's ecosystems, where students posted images of creatures that ranged from adorable to terrifying, marveling that they all existed on the same planet. Some wondered if Earth's environment might have parallels in other star systems, or if humans had discovered a special equilibrium that balanced threats and resources. In these discussions, Mira's voice remained measured. She cautioned against idolizing Earth as the pinnacle of survival challenges. Every world, she insisted, had secrets that pushed life to evolve in astonishing ways. Life at Zenith Academy persisted with its usual blend of lectures, practical exercises, communal meals, and late-night study sessions. Yet the shift in perspective toward Terra and, by extension, the potential of humankind, remained palpable. More and more, Mira felt part of a community rather than an outsider. She continued to test her limits, enrolling in specialized modules that explored psychological resilience, advanced xenobiology, and even diplomatic conflict resolution. Her experiences on Earth, where she had to interpret both subtle and overt signs of danger, helped her appreciate the nuance of reading individuals or entire communities in crisis. She excelled in these courses, and her peers often thanked her for sharing a viewpoint that combined caution and empathy. Stories of her feats in the labyrinth circulated far beyond its initial group of witnesses, taking on a life of their own. Some retellings exaggerated the scale of the simulated beast she conquered, or claimed she had faced 10 of them single-handedly. Others suggested she had formed a telepathic link with the illusions, which she quickly denied whenever she heard it. However, most of the Academy recognized that the core truth was impressive enough without embellishment. A lone human had navigated one of the most daunting simulations ever designed and emerged victorious while assisting others. The significance of this achievement was not lost on the staff, who often invoked it in motivational speeches for new students. In time, the Academy scheduled another iteration of the survival challenge. Though it had not been a full year, they sometimes held special sessions for midterm evaluations. Word spread that the new simulation would be even more elaborate, drawing from dozens of newly collected alien bioscans. Many looked to Mira, wondering if she would once again set the bar impossibly high. She readied herself, though she felt a certain calm that came from having faced countless dangers on Earth and here at the Academy. People watched her train in the communal gym, where she would run for extended intervals or practice improvised combat with the simplest of tools, reinforcing the lessons that had served her so well. When the next challenge arrived, she entered the labyrinth with unwavering composure. The environment looked drastically different, with swirling mists that distorted shapes, vine-laden corridors where walls closed in unpredictably, and illusions that mimicked entire herds of creatures rather than a single apex predator. It was a test of not just physical prowess, but also mental and emotional fortitude. She carefully navigated the hazards, at times reuniting with a student group to share resources, then splitting off when it made sense tactically. She offered encouragement to those who wanted to flee. By the time she reached the final zone, she discovered that the apex threat had diversified into multiple illusions. Yet she devised a strategy, using the environment against the illusions, leading them into a zone where the simulated environment glitched or overlapped, creating vulnerabilities. Once again, she proved her adaptability, completing the trial with impressive efficiency. She did not break her own record, as the environment was far more complex, but she emerged having supported many others in finishing the simulation. Observers called her performance a demonstration of leadership rather than mere survival. Even beyond her successes, Mira strove to remain approachable. She joined group study sessions in the Academy's wide, glass-enclosed library, which offered views of distant stars and the swirling cosmos. When other students asked about her experiences, she patiently recounted stories that illuminated how humans relied on cooperation, innovation, and empathy to thrive on a planet as diverse and perilous as Terra. She assured them that while Earth did indeed harbor threats, it also possessed incredible beauty and wonder. Lush forests, soaring mountain ranges, deep oceans teeming with life, and skies that transformed daily under the shifting colors of sunrise and sunset. Over time, her presence began to change how Terra was discussed. Instead of focusing solely on lethal predators, some students started citing the planet's evolutionary marvels, its capacity for housing so many different ecosystems, and the adaptational brilliance that could arise there. They no longer spoke about the death world in hushed, terrified whispers, but with a sense of respectful curiosity. They wondered how this synergy between risk and reward could push a species to develop remarkable traits. Conversations about Terra often ended with remarks that perhaps many of the galaxy's preconceived notions about danger were incomplete, or that fear often distorted the underlying truth. Meanwhile, Instructor Varlock found his long-held theories about survival evolving in the light of Mira's example. He had always believed that a species required specialized biological features to excel in extreme conditions, armor-like skin, toxin production, or the ability to withstand radiation. He saw in Mira a kind of adaptability that went beyond mere biology. It was an adaptability rooted in cognitive and emotional traits, in a willingness to cooperate, innovate, and remain flexible under pressure. He confided in a few senior instructors that he never would have guessed a mammalian species lacking exoskeletons or bioluminescence would top the survival challenge, let alone perform rescue after rescue of fellow students. The instructors agreed that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Mira's daily life at the academy continued to follow a stable rhythm. She attended advanced courses in planetary navigation, ecological engineering, and cross-species diplomacy. Because of her unique background, she became a liaison of sorts for courses discussing predator-prey relationships across different worlds. Students who initially avoided her now approached her eagerly, requesting to partner on projects or to ask how she would handle hypothetical crises. Her attitude remained humble and helpful. She never boasted about her achievements, preferring to credit her successes to the natural environment that had honed her instincts. This sense of community and mutual support blossomed, fostering unlikely friendships. The floating student she had saved from carnivorous plants in the labyrinth occasionally brought her small gifts of exotic fruit or alien pastries to express gratitude. During one quiet evening, long after the bustle of classes had ended for the day, Mira found herself standing alone in one of the station's observation decks. The transparent walls revealed a sweeping view of distant stars and swirling cosmic gases. She thought about Earth and all the complexities it held, remembering the times she had run from storms and waded through thick undergrowth, uncertain of what might lie in wait. Those childhood lessons had seemed so normal then. It was only now, standing here, that she recognized just how powerful they were when measured against other planetary norms. She felt a twinge of nostalgia and wondered if others back home would be surprised to learn how she was applying those lessons among alien peers. In the weeks that followed, some people began referring to Mira in conversation as the forging flame of the academy, a symbol of how adversity could refine and shape an individual. The old moniker Death World lingered, but it was no longer linked only to terror. Instead, it was mentioned as a place of forging, a crucible where the line between danger and opportunity blurred, pushing humans to cultivate strength in every sense: physical, mental, and emotional. A handful of classmates even expressed dreams of someday visiting Terra, though they conceded they would need specialized training and robust gear to survive. Mira told them that Earth was not a single uniform threat, but a patchwork of ecosystems, some far gentler than others, though each contained hidden challenges. Instructor Varlock, ever keen on structure, arranged a final demonstration in the Academy's largest auditorium. He invited Mira to collaborate with him on a session about the philosophy and practice of survival. Hundreds of students and staff attended, drawn by curiosity about how these two might combine their knowledge. Varlock began with a historical overview of how different species developed survival strategies, such as camouflage, armor, group hunting, or sophisticated technology. Then Mira took the stage to explain how humans, with no exoskeletons or specialized weapons built into their bodies, found strength in cooperation, problem-solving, and tools. She described how humans sometimes tamed or domesticated Earth's creatures, forming bonds that were beneficial on both sides, illustrating that survival was not always about defeating threats, but sometimes about harnessing them in a symbiotic way. The audience was enthralled as she concluded with the assertion that perhaps no world was purely a death world or a safe world, because risk and safety were matters of perspective and adaptation. By the end of the demonstration, the crowd broke into a wave of applause and excited chatter. Many wanted to share their own world's survival stories. A line of students formed, each hoping for a moment to speak with the human who had defied their assumptions. Mira was patient with each one, discussing everything from the importance of a well-balanced ecosystem to the ethics of taming wild creatures. Varlock observed from the side, quietly pleased that his academy was evolving into a place of deeper understanding. The entire atmosphere had shifted, opening up new dialogues about the interplay of fear, discovery, and growth. Late that evening, Mira strolled along one of the academy's quieter corridors. Decorative panels softly glowed on the walls, illuminating historical achievements of prior generations of students. She paused at a section dedicated to those who had made groundbreaking discoveries in xenobiology. Their accomplishments were etched into shining plaques, while above them floated holographic images of strange flora and fauna discovered on uncharted planets. She found herself reflecting on how each of these individuals had probably once been just as unknown as she was, stepping into the unknown with curiosity and courage. In that moment, she felt a sense of connection to the place and its mission. She realized that Terra's gifts, those survival skills and adaptive mindsets, could contribute something genuinely new to this interstellar community. Days turned into weeks, and Mira's schedule remained full. She underwent advanced training modules, sometimes facing hostile illusions that mimicked the predators of far-off star systems, learning about the complexities of those ecosystems and improving her capacity to respond. With each session, she grew more adept at balancing caution with decisiveness. She observed how some illusions exploited fear, while others manipulated illusions of safety to lure unsuspecting participants. Her reflections on Earth's cunning predators helped her decode these advanced illusions. She began to see parallels between a digital creature that distracted its target with blinking lights and the cunning tactics used by certain Earth animals to disorient prey. New arrivals to the academy heard rumors of a human who had excelled beyond measure in the survival challenge. Some approached Mira, half expecting a brash, intimidating figure. Instead, they discovered a calm, pragmatic individual who spoke softly about trusting one's instincts and working together. Eventually, instructors started to coordinate sessions where she could mentor smaller groups of newcomers, guiding them through the fundamentals of hazard recognition and resourcefulness. She taught them how to remain composed under stress, to read subtle environmental clues, and to focus on solutions rather than obstacles. Many who took her sessions reported a significant increase in their own performance, whether in the labyrinth or in other classes that required strategic thinking. As time went on, Mira's story extended beyond the walls of Zenith Academy. Word spread to other educational institutions, and some planetary governments with challenging ecosystems began sending inquiries, wondering if a cultural exchange program or specialized survival instruction might be beneficial. The academy administrators, seeing an opportunity to forge broader alliances, occasionally asked Mira to serve as a student ambassador, bridging gaps between Terra's reputation and the rest of the galaxy's scientific interests. At first, she felt slightly overwhelmed by these formalities, but with the help of more experienced staff, she learned how to handle the duties gracefully. She realized that she was not just showcasing Earth's dangers. She was exemplifying how humans had learned to live in balance with them. As soon as the gates to the labyrinth opened, the neon jungle shimmered to life, revealing towering, luminescent trees with twisting roots that clung to holographic soil. Carnivorous plants hissed and snapped at anything that passed too close. Some of the ground was stable, while other patches gave way to simulated sinkholes. Strange creatures with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws prowled behind thick clusters of vines. The environment was a cacophony of color and movement, designed to overwhelm the senses. Many students gasped upon stepping inside, but Mira quickly surveyed the situation and moved with a calculated, purposeful stride. She spotted a cluster of vines that could serve as rope, then tested the soil with her foot to see where it gave solid traction. When a carnivorous plant threatened a nearby student, she calmly helped extricate them, advising the student to be mindful of certain telltale patterns in the vegetation. Her confidence emboldened a few watchers who realized she had an uncanny ability to remain unruffled under pressure. Deeper within the labyrinth, the environment became more challenging. The ground sloped downward into a ravine where a simulated predator lurked behind a waterfall, waiting to ambush anyone who passed. Mira heard a student scream and rushed to investigate, finding a reptilian peer who had been cornered against the ravine wall. This adversary had the form of a large feline with shimmering fur, blazing orange eyes, and elongated fangs that dripped holographic toxin. Mira maneuvered carefully around it, using a sturdy piece of fallen wood as a makeshift staff to distract the creature. As soon as it lunged, she sidestepped and struck, destabilizing the hologram. Then she grabbed her startled classmate's arm and guided them out of harm's way. Observers in the control room watched with astonishment, noting that she seemed not only prepared for each threat, but also willing to help others who struggled to adapt. Throughout the course of the challenge, she paused whenever possible to gather materials that might prove useful, a long vine that could be woven into a lasso, or a chunk of rock that could be sharpened. Her approach was methodical. She would survey the environment, test potential hazards, and then proceed with an assured step. Meanwhile, many of her peers were scrambling in panic, uncertain how to handle the sheer number of threats. Some were forced to retreat early, while others became trapped in sticky, web-like constructs conjured by the simulation's advanced programming. Mira continued onward, using her improvised tools to overcome pitfalls and ambushes that would have stymied less experienced participants. She recalled how on Earth, not all dangers were enormous or obvious. Sometimes the smallest creatures wielded the deadliest venoms. Applying this principle, she remained constantly vigilant, scanning every shadow for subtle movements. Eventually, she reached the final section of the labyrinth, where the central clearing lay. There, a massive creature roared with enough intensity to rattle the leaves of the holographic trees. This simulated apex predator was designed to embody the attributes of several lethal animals from different planets, combining brute strength with heightened senses and a menacing array of claws and teeth. A handful of students arrived at approximately the same time, but most scattered in alarm. The beast lashed out, swiping the air with a tail that crackled with charged energy. Some tried to launch ranged attacks, but they could not penetrate the illusions effectively, and the creature advanced on them, forcing them to flee. Mira stood calmly, analyzing the monster's pattern of movement. She noticed the way it telegraphed its attacks, the intervals between each roar, and the slight delay when it turned to face a new target. Realizing her moment, she sprinted behind one of the larger trees, snapped off a thick branch, and quickly used her improvised stone to sharpen one end. She then waited for the creature to lunge at a small group of cowering students. As it reared up to strike, she dashed forward and jabbed the sharpened branch at a vulnerable spot near its neck. The illusion flickered, unleashing a distorted roar, then crumpled into a waterfall of pixels that dissolved into thin air. The clearing fell silent as everyone processed what had just happened. An alarm-like signal sounded, marking the official end of the survival challenge. Mira stepped back, breathing heavily but grinning with the exhilaration of having faced a worthy test. When the simulation ended, the neon jungle faded, revealing the large enclosed arena with blank, metallic walls. Lights brightened overhead, and the instructors emerged, led by Instructor Varlik. They commended all who had participated, then turned special attention to Mira's performance. With clear astonishment, Varlik announced that her feats had eclipsed long-standing records for speed, efficiency, and successful assists of other students. Her ability to track and neutralize the final guardian surpassed anything the Academy had seen in recent years. A chorus of hushed amazement and some scattered applause spread among the participants, who viewed her not with fear, but with renewed respect. A few dared to approach, asking her how she had known where to strike or how to remain so calm. She explained that growing up on Earth meant understanding that danger could come from any direction, at any time. One learned to adapt quickly, anticipate threats, and remain vigilant without descending into panic. Over the next few days, whispers of her victory traveled from one corner of the Academy to another. In the dining hall, more students began sitting near her, hesitant at first, but clearly eager to learn. One group asked if it was really true that humans could run extremely long distances without giving up. Another wanted to know how children on Earth were taught to avoid dangerous animals. Mira replied by describing the concept of endurance running, how ancient human ancestors would track prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. She explained that from an early age, humans were often educated on what plants were poisonous, how to recognize a venomous snake, and how to ward off larger predators. This was a revelation for students who came from worlds where the environment was more gentle or the evolutionary dynamics less fierce. As the days passed, Mira became a sought-after collaborator in group projects. Students wanted to hear her perspective when designing hypothetical survival scenarios. She helped them devise strategies that used minimal technology, leaning on resourcefulness and cooperation instead. Sometimes she tested their assumptions by introducing Earth analogies. What would you do if supplies ran out, if you faced temperature extremes, or if a hidden threat lurked in every ecosystem? These conversations broadened everyone's thinking. Instructor Varlick watched from a distance, occasionally nodding approvingly. He even invited her to conduct a guest demonstration in one of his advanced classes, where she showed how a makeshift spear could be fashioned from everyday materials and then adapted to specific planetary conditions. This presentation won over many who had once regarded her with suspicion or fear. News of Mira's abilities soon reached the Survivalist Club, an exclusive group composed of the Academy's most skilled and ambitious students. Typically, it took applicants several attempts to earn membership, and some never succeeded. Yet the club's leaders decided to bypass this process for Mira and extended an immediate invitation. At a quiet ceremony in a side corridor, they presented her with an intricately designed badge bearing the club's insignia, a stylized beast skull wreathed in alien script. She humbly accepted, acknowledging that no matter how formidable Earth might seem, she still had much to learn from the diversity of life across the galaxy. The members nodded, clearly impressed by her modesty, which stood in stark contrast to the terrifying rumors that had once painted her as a harbinger of doom from a monstrous world. Around this time, Mira began receiving messages and requests for interviews from visiting scholars and ambassadors who were fascinated by the Death World narrative. Some envoys wanted to compare Terra's environment to their own home planets, to see if there were any shared ecological patterns. Others were eager to establish diplomatic or commercial ties, believing that humans might harbor rare biological or technological insights gleaned from surviving in a place of ceaseless challenges. Mira responded politely, often directing them to Instructor Varlick or the Academy administration for official follow-ups, as she herself was still a student learning the protocols of interstellar relations. In these interactions, she maintained a calm and approachable demeanor, further dispelling the idea that humans were unrelentingly fierce or dangerous. In quieter moments, Mira reflected on how surreal it was that the everyday challenges of her homeworld were now the subject of such intense curiosity and respect. She remembered how, as a child, she would watch storms roll in over the ocean, lightning illuminating waves that might hide all manner of marine predators. She recalled hikes through forests teeming with hidden life, from venomous insects to stealthy mammals that could traverse entire mountain ranges. She even thought back to her earliest lessons about fire safety, poisonous plants, and how to read animal tracks. Never had she imagined that these routine lessons would one day place her on a pedestal in a faraway station among alien species.